go ahead and get ready. Go ahead and start. Bismillah. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم. So, alhamdulillah, starting this today, I did mention last week in our class last week that I was going to do a slight deviation from the course syllabus, because last week we completed there were two lectures on al-Iman bil-Yawm al-Akhir, faith or belief in the last day. And so last week we completed the second of those lectures. And then according to this course syllabus, the next lecture was supposed to be on al-Imanu bil-Qadr, belief in the divine decree. However, I said that someone had mentioned to me that they would like, during one of those classes about signs of, about belief in the last day, that they wanted to talk. Could we talk about Ashraat is-Saa'ah? Okay, thank you very much. I got it. All right, alhamdulillah. Which button were you pushing to advance?
Just want to go to the next.
Okay, all right. Go back. Okay, all right. So alhamdulillah. Okay, very good. Let me see. Oh yeah, look at that. Check it out. Okay. So that way, Yasmin can relax a little bit. Okay. So anyway, the point being that one of the people in the class mentioned, since we were talking about belief in the last day, they asked me some questions about some of the signs of the last day. So I said, inshallah, even though that's not particularly in Shaykh al-Uthaymeen's discussion about al-Iman bil-Yawm al-Akhir, belief in the last day, in his book Sharh Usul al-Iman, which is the book that we've been going through, explanation of the fundamentals of faith. I said, inshallah, we'll take a class segment to talk about some of the signs of the last day. Okay. So that's what we'll be doing today, inshallah. So next week, inshallah, we will be talking about al-Imanu bil-Qadr, belief in the divine decree. But today, inshallah, we will take this session to talk about some signs of the last day, which the Prophet Muhammad himself would call Ashraat is-Saa'ah. Ashraat is-Saa'ah, which means the signs or those things that, that are indicative, that will indicate that the last day is coming, that we can look for. Okay. So this, today, what we will be talking about will be taken, a majority, if not really all of what we will be talking about, will be taken from this book, As-Saheeh al-Musnad min Ahaadeeth il-Fitan wal-Malaahim wa Ashraat is-Saa'ah, which translates to be the authentic, traceable hadiths regarding the tribulations, fitan meaning trials and tribulations, those things that are calamities and trials like this, and Malaahim meaning like battles, wa Ashraat is-Saa'ah, and signs of the final hour, of the last hour. Okay, and this book is by Shaykh Mustafaa Al Adawee, who is an Egyptian scholar, who is a scholar of Hadith. His specialty is, he's a Muhaddith. His specialty is in the sciences of Hadith. And so Shaykh Mustafaa has compiled a number of books regarding where he takes a particular subject about Islam, and he takes all of the Hadiths related to that subject, and he sifts through all of the hadiths in the different hadith books, Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawood, At-Tirmidhi, An-Nasa'i, Ibn Majah, all the different hadith, like Musnad, Ahmed, all of these different hadith works, and he pulls out whatever is authentic, Sahih, from those texts, and he compiles it into one book regarding that subject, and he calls it As-Saheeh al-Musnad fi Kada wa Kada, the authentic hadith collections regarding this subject. Okay. So this is one of those, one of his books that he did that with, concerning Ashraat is-Saa'ah, the signs of the last hour. And so I was going to say, Yasmin, go to the next slide, but I guess I don't have to do that. Okay, so the first, and this class today will be very hadithy. Okay, when I say that, it means that really what we're going to do, because the book we're coming from, he's basically using just hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ to discuss this subject. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? What is authentic from the Prophet ﷺ about this? As opposed to a lot of, there is some explanation. Of course, there are some footnotes, and in certain places I will read if there needs some explanation. That he brings statements from some of the other scholars of the past, giving more details about a particular statement in the hadith, or a word that's used in the hadith, or the meaning. If there's a difference of opinion about what the hadith means, he discusses it in the footnotes. So inshallah, and though when we come to those places, if time allows, I will try to inform you all of those particular things that he says as notations, to what the hadiths are saying. But in general, most of the class is going to be straight from the prophetic hadiths. Okay. Regarding what the Prophet said about the last day. So In this first slide, we want to discuss the issue that the Prophet ﷺ told of what would happen up until the day of resurrection. And the first narration he brings is on the authority of Zayd bin Amr, bin Akhtab, where he said, Salla bina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam led us in prayer. Okay, he said, al-Fajr, the Fajr prayer, the morning prayer. وَسَعَدَ الْمِنْبَرِ فَخَطَبَنَا حَتَّى حَضَرَتَ الظُّهْرِ. And he lectured, he sermoned us, the Prophet. So he prayed the Fajr, he led them in the morning prayer, Fajr prayer, the pre-dawn prayer. And then when the prayer was over, the Prophet ascended on the minbar, which is like the elevated platform from where he would give his khutbahs, his sermons. This is after Fajr time, though. This is not Salatul Jumu'ah. This is after Fajr. So he ascended them on his minbar, that elevated platform, and he began lecturing them, admonishing them and lecturing them like this, giving them a khutbah, if you will. And he kept doing it until Dhuhr time. So imagine from Fajr until Dhuhr. Like today, Fajr time, maybe if you prayed it at 6 or something like this, I think it goes out now at maybe like 6:40 or 6:50 or something like that. So imagine someone standing from that time all the way up until now, all the way up until Dhuhr, maybe it's like 12:30 or something like that. That whole time he stood on the minbar, the Prophet hours, lecturing them, giving them a khutbah, like this. فَنَزَلَ فَصَلَّى. So then he came down from the minbar and then he led them in the Dhuhr prayer. ثُمَّ سَعَدَ الْمِنْبَرِ. Then he went back up on the minbar again, on the platform again. فَخَطَبَ. He said, فَخَطَبَنَا حَتَّى حَضَرَتَ الْعَصْرِ. And then he kept sermoning us. He kept giving us this sermon until Asr time came. So the next prayer. ثُمَّ نَزَلَ فَصَلَّى. Then he came down when it's time for Asr and he led us in Salatul Asr. ثُمَّ سَعَدَ الْمِنْبَرِ فَخَطَبَنَا حَتَّى غَرَبَتِ الشَّمْسِ. And then he ascended the minbar again and he lectured us, gave us a sermon until the sun set. فَأَخْبَرَنَا بِمَا كَانَ وَبِمَا هُوَ كَائِنٌ فَأَعْلَمَنَا وَأَحْفَظَنَا. So he says the Prophet, so he ascended them, after they prayed the Maghrib prayer, after the Asr prayer, he ascended and he gave them a sermon until the sun set, till Maghrib time. And so then he said, the narrator, Abu Zayd Amr bin Akhtab, he said, so the Prophet informed us, what was he doing during all that whole day when he was giving us these talks, the entire day? He said he informed us of whatever was and whatever will be. And he taught us and he made us memorize the information. Like he made us memorize it. And this hadith is in Sahih Muslim. So it's an authentic hadith, hadith number 2892. So we gather from that the Prophet took a whole day out of his time. He took a whole day, an entire day, basically from Fajr time all the way till sunset, till Maghrib, and only stopping to pray and getting back. And so he lectured them an entire day, informing them about things of the past and of whatever will be, talking about signs of the things that would come. So, yeah, did it switch? Yeah, it did. Very good. Okay, so the next narration is on the authority of Hudhayfa ibn al-Yaman, may Allah be pleased with him, radiyallahu anhu. And Hudhayfa said that verily the Prophet ﷺ, indeed the Prophet ﷺ gave us, he said, لَقَدْ خَطَبَنَا النَّبِيُّ ﷺ. The Prophet gave us a khutbatan. مَا تَرَكَ فِيهَا شَيْئًا إِلَى قِيَامِ السَّاعَةِ إِلَّا ذَكْرَهُ. And he did not leave out anything that will happen, all the way up until the establishment of the day of resurrection, except for that he mentioned it. عَلِمَهُ مَنْ عَلِمَهُ وَجَهِلَهُ مَنْ جَهِلَهُ. And he says, whoever knows it, they knew it, and whoever didn't know it, they're just ignorant of it. He said, إِن كُنْتُ لَأَرَىٰ الشَّيْء قَدْ نَسِيتُهُ فَأَعْرِفُهُ كَمَا يَعْرِفُ الرَّجُلَ إِذَا غَابَ عَنْهُ فَرَآهُ فَعَرَفَهُ. And he said, I used to see things, meaning talking about later on in my life. I would see things that I had forgotten about, meaning that the Prophet had told us something about, and I would have forgotten about that thing. But then when I saw it, I would recognize it, just like one man recognizes another whom he hasn't seen for a long period of time, hasn't seen for a long time. So when he sees him, he recognizes him. So what is he saying? He's talking about the Prophet told them about things that would happen in the future, signs of things that would occur, and also signs of the Day of Judgment and so forth like this. And Hudhayfa said, whoever was there, they knew those. They knew the things that the Prophet told us. And whoever didn't know, they just didn't know. They missed it. But he said, I would go through my life and I would see things, and there would be something that the Prophet said, and I would have forgotten about it because of the length of time. Over time, you forget about something that you might have heard. But I would see it, and it would remind me, the Prophet told us that would happen. There it is. And he said it would just be just like when you recognize someone whom you haven't seen in a long time. When you see them, you recognize them right away. Oh, there's so-and-so. And this hadith is in Sahih Bukhari. It is in Sahih Muslim. And it is in Sunan Abi Dawood. So these narrations are just giving us some, and of course I'm not going to read this whole book. Let me hold the book up for you. We're not going to read all the hadiths in this book, okay? So don't think I'm going to sit here and read this whole book to you. We probably would be here until tomorrow and maybe longer than that. But what I'm doing is went through and took out, from certain chapters, different selected narrations to give us certain beneficial points regarding these signs of the hour. But so what I wanted you all to gather from those first two narrations is that the Prophet ﷺ would take out of his time to teach the Sahaba, the companions, about what will happen. He didn't just leave them to just figure out things on their own. He would take out of his time, even like in that first narration, took the entire day to make sure he informed them about what would happen before the day of judgment. So now we're going to talk about some general signs, general statements of the Prophet ﷺ about the coming tribulations, some of the trials and tribulations that would occur. So this first narration is on the authority of Anas bin Malik, radiallahu anhu. And then this narration, oh yes, I went to the wrong page. Let me get to the right page and we'll read the narration. No, here we are. The narration of Anas bin Malik. Okay, so in this narration, the Prophet ﷺ, he told the companions, he said, "لا يأتي عليكم زمان إلا والذي بعده شر منه حتى تلقوا ربكم." And Anas said, "سمعته من نبيكم صلى الله عليه وسلم." So Anas, he said that the Prophet ﷺ said, "There will not come upon you all a time period except for that the one that follows it will be worse than it. And it will continue like this until you all meet your Lord." And he said, "I heard this from your Prophet." Anas said this, "I heard this from your Prophet." Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This hadith is in Sahih Bukhari, and it's also in the Sunan At-Tirmidhi. The point behind what happened with this hadith, to give you some background about it here, some people came to Anas bin Malik during the time of a tyrannical ruler whose name was al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. And al-Hajjaj was a governor over the areas of Iraq. Okay, this is after the death of the Prophet ﷺ. He wasn't the Khalifa. The Khilafah at that time, the seat of the Khilafah during his time was in Damascus. So the head of the Muslim nation at his time was in Damascus. And Hajjaj, though, he was appointed as the governor over Baghdad and the areas of Iraq. Okay? And he was very tyrannical. He was known to be very oppressive. A lot of Muslims were killed in his time under his authority, by his command. He was very, he's like a very mean, tyrannical dictator he was known to be. Okay? And so some people complained to Anas bin Malik, because there were Sahaba who were still alive during that time. So one of the Sahaba who was alive was this Sahabi, Anas bin Malik. So in the narration, the people came to him and they complained to him regarding the harms that they were meeting from al-Hajjaj. And so Anas bin Malik told them, he said, "Isbiru," he said, "be patient." And then he told them this hadith. He said, "I heard from your Prophet that there will not come any time except for the time that will be after it will be worse than it. Will be worse than it." Okay. And so then the next narration. Now I'm on the right page. There's a narration of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. And that he said, that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Min hahuna ja'at al-fitan, nahwa al-mashriq, wal-jafaa, wa ghald al-qulub fi al-faddadin, ahlul wabr, inda usul al-adnab al-ibl, wal-baqr, fi rabi' wa madar." So he said, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, pointing in the direction of the east, he said, "From here will come the fitan. From here will come the evil tribulations will come from that direction, the direction of the east." And he said, "The meanness and harsh hearts are in the loud faddadin." In the narration, he said, these are people who are very loud, boisterous people like this, loud and unruly people like that. Okay? And he said, harshness will be in their hearts. And also, he said, the Bedouin people who follow behind the tails of the camels and cows, among the unruly rural people from the rural areas. And this hadith is in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. And in discussing this hadith, him talking about that the fitan will come from the mashriq, the direction of the east. In other narrations, he mentioned they're nudged, like the Prophet, one narration he made dua of, "Oh Allah, bless us in our Yemen," and "Oh Allah, bless us in our Hijaz." And so then some of the people said, "Oh Messenger of Allah, but also bless us in our Najd." And the Prophet said, "No, from there will come all the fitan. From there will come the evils, the evil trials." Okay, and the scholars of the past explaining this hadith, they said when he was talking about the Najd, he was talking about, it's the same when he was talking about this hadith, the mashriq. And they said that the Najd is talking about the areas of to the east of Arabia in Iraq, in those lands. And what it actually came true what the Prophet said, because a lot of those groups that broke out, that first deviated from Islam, they came from Iraq. The Shiites, the Khawarij, a lot of these groups that broke out in the beginning, the Murji'ah, they came out from those lands and to the east of Arabia, which is we're talking about Iraq, you know.
So when he was talking, was he in Medina? Which part of where was he?
He was in Medina when he said these hadiths. Okay. And so the scholars, like I said, who explained this, and he talks about some of this in the footnotes to these hadiths, because there's a whole section about this. They said that this, also the narrations that go along with this are the narrations when the Prophet said, from there, another narration, he said, from there rises the two horns of the shaitan. From there rises the two horns of the devil. So they said this is talking about the evil groups that came, the deviant groups that came from those areas, who broke out from or came out from those areas. And the Prophet called what happened with them and their innovating, he called it fitan. Fitan is the plural of fitna. Have you all heard of this word fitna? Something is fitna. There's going to be some fitna. This is fitna. Okay. Also, the plural of that word is fitan, and it can mean temptation. It can mean evils. It can mean trials and tribulations like this. It has these meanings, all of those meanings. Okay, so the next narration, that was the narration of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Naam. So the next narration he brings, inshallah, some of these, as we get to some of these narrations, there's going to be some shuruh, some explanations for what he's talking about, because some of them some of the things need further expounding upon, if you will. So this next narration, I used to have a slide turner. Okay, there we go. Is the narration of Abu Huraira. Naam. The narration of Abu Huraira. Naam. Where the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Ra'sul kufr nahwal mashriq. The head of disbelief will come from the east. All right? And he said, wal-fakhr wal-khuyla fi ahl al-khayl wal-ibl wal-faddadin ahl al-wabl wal-sakina fi ahl al-ghanam. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said that the head of disbelief will come from the direction of the east. And al-fakhr wal-khuyla, this is like bragging and arrogance, is in Ahl al-Khayl wal-Ibl, as in the people of the horses and the camels. Wal-Faddadin Ahl al-Wabr, and the loud, clamorous people from the people of it's like the rural people, the Bedouin people. And he says, وَالسَّكِينَةُ فِي أَهْلِ الْغَنَمِ, and tranquility and peace is in the people who herd the sheep, the people of al-Ghanam, sheep. And this hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari, and it is also in Sahih Muslim. So once again, it's similar to the previous hadith that we just read, that talking about that calamities and trials will come from the east. Actually, in this narration, the Prophet made a point to say the head of kufr, the head of disbelief, Ra'sul kufr, will come from that area, from that direction of the east. So these are just still like going through some of the signs the Prophet mentioned. We're going to get to some more things. These are more general things, but inshallah, as we go forward, you'll see the Prophet starts mentioning some more specific things. This next narration, this next narration, the Prophet ﷺ, it says the Prophet led the people in prayer. Okay, the Prophet led. They said Salayna al-Maghrib ma'a Rasulullah ﷺ. The Prophet led us in the Maghrib prayer. Okay. ثم قلنا لو جلسنا حتى نصلي معه العشاء. So then we sat and we said, why don't we stay here until we pray Salat al-Isha along with him, along with the Messenger of Allah. So they prayed Maghrib with the Prophet, and then they said, well, let's just wait here until we pray Salat al-Isha with the Prophet. فقال جلسنا فخرج علينا. So we were sitting there and the Prophet came out to us. And he said, ما زلتم ها هنا, you all are still here? Like, why are you all still sitting here? We prayed Maghrib, what are you all waiting for? قلنا يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. We said, O Messenger of Allah, صلينا معك المغرب. We prayed Maghrib prayer with you. ثم قلنا نجلس حتى نصلي معك العشاء. Then we said to ourselves, why don't we just sit here and wait for the Prophet so we can pray Salat al-Isha with him as well. And so then the Prophet said, Ahsantum aw asabtum. He said, you all have done well, or you all are correct, you all are right in what you've decided. And then he said, فَرَفَعَ رَأْسَهُ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ. But then he lifted his head to the heavens. فَكَانَ كَثِيرًا مِمَّا يَرْفَعَ رَأْسَهُ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ. And often it would be that he would lift his head towards the heavens. فَقَالَ, and he said, النُّجُومُ أَمِنَةٌ لِلسَّمَاءِ فَإِذَا ذَهَبَتُ النُّجُومُ أَتَى السَّمَاء مَا تُوعَدُ وَأَنَا أَمِنَةٌ لِأَصْحَابِي فَإِذَا ذَهَبْتُ أَتَى أَصْحَابِي مَا يُوعَدُونَ وأصحابي أمنة لأمتي فإذا ذهب أصحابي أتى أمتي ما يوعدون. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, after looking up to the heavens, he said, the stars are the security, they are the protectors, they are the security of the heavens. So when the stars go away, then there will come to the heavens that which was promised, the heaven. Meaning, like when the stars fade away, that's when the end of time will come. The end of everything will be destroyed. Okay, and he said, وَأَنَا أَمَنَةٌ لِأَصْحَابِي. And I am the security for my companions. And when I go away, meaning when I die, there will come to my companions that which they have been promised. Meaning there will be tribulations and trials, hard things, difficulties and trials will come to his companions. And he said, وَأَصْحَابِي, my companions, أَمَنَةٌ لِأُمَّتِي. They are the security of my ummah, of my followers, of the Muslims. فَإِذَا ذَهَبَ أَصْحَابِي أَتَى أُمَّتِي مَا يُوعَدُونَ. And when my companions go away, meaning when they die, then there will come to my ummah that which it was promised. Talking about of the fitan, he talks about in the footnotes here, he's talking about of the trials and tribulations and the differing and the wars and the fighting and things like this. These things will come. So the Prophet is telling them, the Prophet was telling them, he's warning them that I'm here. And while I'm here, okay, nobody's going to be disputing about Islam, I mean, yeah, we'll fight against the disbelievers who are attacking us or who want Islam to perish, and we have to defend Islam against them and whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I'm here. Islam won't go away. Everything will be fine as long as I'm with you. We'll make it. But when I go away, there will come to you all that which was promised, meaning that you all will have there will be some calamities that will happen to you all. He's telling his companions. And we saw that. What did we see? Umar ibn al-Khattab was assassinated. When he became the Khalifa, a man assassinated him. But then after he was stabbed while he was making salat, killed in the prayer. So then after that, then Uthman became the Khalifa. But what happened to Uthman? Uthman was assassinated. He was killed by Muslims. A group of like 18 Muslim youths attacked his home and seized his house, and they murdered him while he was reading the Quran. This is a calamity. Muslim, the leader of the Muslims, one of the Prophet's companions, no less, being killed at the hands of other Muslims. And so then after him, Ali ibn Abi Talib was killed while making salat. So I mean, a lot of tribulations and trials happened. There was battles that took place between the Sahaba and some deviant people. Then even at one point, some of the Sahaba fell into fighting each other. And they made peace. Alhamdulillah, they rectified it. But I mean, as the Prophet said, while I'm here, everything will be fine. But when I go away, problems will come. And then after all the Sahaba left, then things even got worse. And as the Prophet told them, in the hadith that we mentioned before, there's not going to come a time, except for the time after, it's going to be worse than it. I saw a hand up now.
Yeah, the disappearance of the stars that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Is this one of the signals you mentioned about 2 weeks ago, that the signals you see when the world is coming?
Yes, that's what we're talking about. Yeah, all today, that's what we're going to be talking about. Signs of the Day of Judgment. So that's one of the things that will tell us when that happens. That's the expect the Saa'ah, the final hour. That's it. That's it for the heavens. When the stars go away, that's it for the heavens. All right, the destruction will come to it. All right, so inshallah you all understand that point. Okay, and that hadith is in Sahih Muslim, hadith number 2531. We can go to the next. Good. All right. So examples from the minor signs of the last day. So we're going to keep reading further. Examples from the minor signs of the last day. As you all see, I'm skipping. There's a lot here. But I can't sit here and translate this entire book. So as I was reading through it, I picked out certain things that I would, inshallah, that would help summarize some of the other things that the other narrations that we're talking about. So this next narration, now we're going to talk about some of the minor signs of the last day. This narration is on the authority of Abu Hurairah. Page 1082. If I get to the right page, we'll get to it now. Authority of Abu Hurairah. Naam. So Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يأتي على الناس زمان لا يبالي المرء ما أخذ منه أَمِنَ الْحَلَالِ أَم مِنَ الْحَرَامِ. So this hadith is in Sahih Bukhari, hadith 2059. Also it is in Sunan of Nasa'i. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, there will come a time upon the people, لا يبالي المرء ما أخذ منه. The person will not care where he takes his provisions from. أَمِنَ الْحَلَالِ أَم مِنَ الْحَرَامِ. Whether it is from the lawful things or whether it is from the unlawful things. I mean, a person won't care. He won't care if what he got was stolen. He won't care if it's something illegal or not. He don't care. Just, I want to get what I need to get, and I'm going to get it however I can get it. The Prophet is saying there will come a time upon the people where matters will be like this. I mean, this is one of the signs of the coming of the Day of Judgment. And how many people do we know who are like that, And we seek refuge with Allah from becoming like that, where we do not care whether what we take from is whether it is something that Allah has permitted us to have, or in a way that Allah has permitted us to acquire it, or whether it is in a way that is unlawful for us, which we call haram, to acquire, unlawful means of acquiring things. But this is one of the signs of the last day. The next narration. Now, this hadith is on the authority of the Sahabi, the companion known as Thawban. Okay? And Thawban, he said, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إنما أخاف على أمتي الأئمة المضلين وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تزال طائفة من أمتي على الحق ظاهرين لا يضرهم من خذلهم حتى يأتي أمر الله. So in this hadith, it's in the Sunan of At-Tirmidhi, and Shaykh Mustafaa Al Adawee, he said that it is Sahih. He graded it authentic. He said the hadith is Sahih. Where the Prophet said, I only fear for my followers, what I fear for my followers are al-a'immat al-mudillin, the imams who lead others astray, who lead the people astray. And then he went on to say, لا تزال طائفة من أمتي على الحق ظاهرين لا يضرهم من خذلهم. He said that there will always be a group from amongst my ummah, from my followers, who will be upon the truth. They will always remain. And they will be victorious, and they will not be harmed by those who abandon them. And the matter will remain like this until Allah's command comes to pass. And when he's talking about Allah's command comes to pass, he's talking about the end of time, the end, when the final hour, when those, when Allah takes the people, removes the people from the earth, and so forth, whatever. So, but the point the Prophet is telling them that this is what will happen. There will be a'immah, imams, leaders amongst the Muslims who will be mudillun, who will lead people astray. But they will come to a situation where they will be the people who are in charge. They will be the leaders, and they will lead others astray. But the Prophet also gave them glad tidings but still, there will always remain a group amongst my followers who will be upon the truth. And this, the scholars took from this hadith, they call these people at-ta'ifatul mansura. At-ta'ifatul mansura. Have you all heard of this terminology? At-ta'ifatul mansura. At-ta'ifatul mansura, which is taken from the wording of this hadith, it means the aided group, the victorious group. Okay? And the Prophet ﷺ said, they will be ala al-haq, they will be upon the truth. He said, وَلَا يَضُرُّهُمْ مَنْ خَذَلَهُمْ. They will not be harmed by whoever abandons them. In another narration, it was mentioned, in another similar narration, the companions asked the Prophet to describe these victorious people to them. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, مَنْ يُطِيعُهُمْ مَنْ يَعْصِيهِمْ أَكْثَرْ مِمَّنْ يُطِيعُهُم. Those who disobey them will be more than those people who will listen to them. Okay? Meaning most people won't even hear from them. Most people won't follow. They will be upon the truth. The Prophet said they will be upon the truth. They will be following, in other words, they'll be following the Quran and the Sunnah and the way the original Islam. But other Muslims won't want to listen to them, most of the people. Some people will listen to them, but most people won't even want to listen to them. Okay? And it's happening now. This is the signs of the Day of Judgment. This is from the signs. The Prophet told that it would happen. But he will say there will always be a group from his ummah who will stick to the original Islam, even though the other people won't want to listen to them. And in another narration, in describing them, he called them the ghurabat, the strangers, because they will be strange amongst the people. And he said about them, he said, when the companions asked him, sifhum lana, describe them to us, the Prophet said, they are the ones who rectify, yuslihuna ma afsada nas min sunnati. They're the people who set right with the people who have corrupted of my sunnah. They try to rectify, make things correct of my sunnah, what people have, corrupted. He's talking about from the Muslims, not talking about from the disbelievers. He's talking about from the Muslims. So Allahul Musta'an, Allah is the one whom we seek, we ask for help. That was the narration of Thawban. Naam, so we can move on. Naam, a question? Go ahead.
Are you trying to cover what the difference is between the minor and major signs?
Yeah, we're going to come to during today, the whole class, we're going to get through minor, and then we're going to get to major. So we're going to come through, inshallah, I know if you all may have some questions about some things. We'll inshallah, when we get to the end, if we haven't covered it, we'll talk about it, you know. But yeah, we're going to go through, like I said, this class today is going to be very hadithy. All we're going to be going through narrations, you know. So this is like considered a hadith class on the signs of the Day of Judgment. We're going to go through narrations, not just going to be me giving my opinion about the Day of Judgment. We'll be looking at hadiths of the Prophet, okay?
So it means that this Shaykh Mustafaa, he is the one that is saying that this is hadith, for example, ultimately, other people consider this is not the hadith, Sahih?
This, you're talking about the footnote?
Yes.
The footnote, the hadith is in Sunan At-Tirmidhi. It's in the Sunan At-Tirmidhi. And Shaykh Mustafaa Al Adawee, the author of the book, he's a hadith scholar. He checked the hadith's chain of narration. He said this hadith is, the chain of narration meets the conditions of authenticity. It's sahih. The hadith is sahih.
On his authority.
Right, that's why I put it. On his authority, he says this hadith is sahih. No. Well, I mean, I don't know of anyone who declared it da'if. Yeah. I don't know of anyone who said it's da'if. But there's also Sahih Sunan At-Tirmidhi. You know, there's a book called Sahih Sunan At-Tirmidhi. Have you all heard of Shaykh Muhammad Nasiruddin Al-Albani?
Yes.
Okay. Shaykh Al-Albani is considered, amongst many people, to be the imam of hadith of these times. He's deceased now, rahimahullah. May Allah have mercy upon him. He died in 1999. Okay. But for these times, he was considered the great imam of hadith of these times. Why? Because he gave more attention to the checking of the hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ than anyone else, like no one else did. So all of these books, this is a side point, you know, just based upon what she's asking. He went through Sunan At-Tirmidhi, Sunan Ibn Majah, Sunan Abi Dawood, Sunan An-Nasa'i, Mishkat al-Masabih, Riyadh al-Salihin, Al-Adab al-Mufrad. He went through all of these hadith books and sifted through them to find what is weak and what is authentic, what is unauthentic and what is authentic. And he separated those things out until where now we have, if you want to look for what are the authentic, because if you just take Sunan Abi Dawood, this hadith book yourself, there are weak hadiths in that book. There are hadiths in that book that are not authentic, and there are hadiths in that book that are authentic. There are hadiths in that book that are sahih that are not in Bukhari and Muslim. So someone can't just say, well, I'm only going to follow Bukhari and Muslim because those are only sahih hadiths. True, Bukhari and Muslim only have sahih hadiths in it. But this is a big mistake, because if you do this, you're going to leave out a great amount of the sunnah. Because Al-Imam al-Bukhari and Al-Imam Muslim, they didn't collect all of the sunnah in their books. There's a lot of the sunnah that is not in Bukhari and Muslim, that's in those other hadith collections, that are also authentic, that are sahih. Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim weren't trying to gather all of the hadiths in their books. And there's all of the hadiths that were authentic from the Prophet are not just in Bukhari and Muslim. If you just say, I'm just going to take Quran, Bukhari, and Muslim, there's a lot of stuff in Islam that you're going to be leaving out. And even I'm talking about even just about salat and fiqh stuff like this that is not in Bukhari and Muslim. You know, so these other hadith collections of these other scholars of hadith, who some of them were students of Bukhari and Muslim, and some of them were teachers of Bukhari and Muslim. Like Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal has his Musnad. That's the largest collection of hadith that exists. He was a teacher of Bukhari and Muslim. Okay, his hadith collection is the largest hadith collection that exists. There are authentic hadiths in his Musnad that aren't in Bukhari and Muslim, but they're authentic hadiths. Okay, so but the thing is, now for a lay person to say, I'm going to go to Abu Dawood or Musnad Ahmed or Muwatta of Imam Malik, whatever, and just read and just practice based upon when I read. Well, there's stuff in those books that are unauthentic also. Okay, so this is the importance of the science of hadith and the scholars of hadith, the Ahlul Hadith, the scholars of Sunnah, the scholars of hadith. Okay, because they went through these. They are the men who go through and women too, the scholars of the past, men and women, who had the knowledge of who were these narrators, who were these people. We call it ilm al-rijal. In the science of hadith, it's called ilm al-rijal. Knowledge of who the narrators were. Okay, and they knew they would go through and what did people who were their contemporaries say about this person and that person, who narrated from this person, from that person. So there were conditions they made that the chain had to be connected. Each person who narrated, he had to have actually met the person he narrated from. If so-and-so said, I heard from so-and-so, he actually had to have met that person. If he's saying that as collecting the book and we look and find, well, there are 30 years between them, he couldn't have heard from him because he wasn't even alive, then there's something wrong with that. That hadith is not authentic hadith. Unless we find someone else who narrated who has a connected chain. But that chain is broken, All right? There's a missing link. Also, the people in the narration, they have to have adala, meaning the people have to be known to be trustworthy, reliable, good Muslims, practicing, good, righteous, upright people. They couldn't be people who were known to be liars and cheaters and people who were, upon deception and so forth like this. They had to have good character, sound character, okay? And they have to be known for that amongst their contemporaries, okay? If they don't know, if someone's narrating and none of his contemporaries knew anything about him, they said, well, yeah, we knew him, but we don't know anything about him. I mean, we met him. Then that person is majhul. In the narration, that means he's unknown. Yeah, we may know his name, but no one knew anything about him. That's a majhul narrator. There's a deficiency. That's a weak hadith. That's not authentic hadith. All right. I'm just giving you some examples. Another thing, the person have to have his hifz has to be tamam al-hifz. Okay, he has to be tam bid-dabt, and he has to be exact and precise in what he memorized. Okay, he can't be someone who mixed up his, like one day he told the hadith like this, then the next day we were sitting with him, he told it in a different way and changed the words. No, it has to be someone that he memorized this hadith, and every time he told it exactly that way. All right, he had a good memory. He was not known to be weak in his memory. All right. So, and another thing is that the hadith can't have any what they call illah qadiha. A illah means we'll say a hidden defect. Defects in reference to how it was worded. Like in this hadith, this person used this word, but that word wasn't used by the Prophet's companions. This is actually a Persian word. It's not even the Prophet's companions didn't even use this. Didn't talk like that even, you know. Stuff like this, things that they can see in the wording of it, you know. Then also it can't be any shudud. Shudud means that it contradicts the narrator who narrates it, contradicts other narrators who are either more than him, or they're more precise and exact in their memory and they're retaining information and what they reported than him. They're stronger as reporters than him. So let's say this person narrates something, a hadith, and he uses a certain wording how he narrates this hadith, but there are other people who narrated that hadith from the Sahaba, and they're more than him, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 people who narrate that same hadith from Sahaba, and they say something opposite of what he says, you know, and how he narrated the hadith. And they're more than him. Or if they're stronger in reference to their veracity, you know, their trustworthiness and their memory and so forth, then his hadith is considered shadh, which means he's contradicting that which is well known to be certain. We're certain it's authentic. So that narration is on. See, they're conditional. It's a whole science behind this. Not just, oh, we just say the Prophet said. No. There's a science behind this, you know. And one of the scholars of that science in these times is the Shaykh Mustafaa Al Adawee. Shaykh Mustafaa Al Adawee is one of the scholars of hadith in these times, and he's still living. Shaykh Al-Bani died, but going back to this point, you asked about this hadith in At-Tirmidhi. Also, if one wants to look, you can check in Sunan At-Tirmidhi, Sahih Sunan At-Tirmidhi by Shaykh Al-Bani and see what did he give what grade he gave to this hadith. And if you want to know, inshallah, after the class or during the break, I can find out. I can tell you what Shaykh Al-Bani said about the hadith. You know, you can just go on the internet to his website. You know, all of his books are right on his website. I can go on my phone and look and see what did Al-Bani say about this hadith. You know, so you know, how many are this high-tech phase is very, very good for some things, you know. So, but anyway, so that hadith was the hadith, and I know we got sidetracked. Was there a hand up? I thought I saw. You had a hand up? Did I answer with it? Did I cover it though already? Okay, all right, alhamdulillah. Okay, so the next one, did we go to the next one? No, I did. Now it's time to go to the next one. No, the hadith of Ka'b bin Ujra. Naam. So this next hadith, on the authority of Ka'b, and am I looking at the right page? I got to make sure I'm keeping up with the right pages myself. Naam. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ, naam. Am I on the right page? Okay, yeah, here we are. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, there will be umara, there will be leaders min ba'di. Okay? Umara sayakununa min ba'di. من دخل عليهم فصدقهم بحديثهم وعانهم على ظلمهم فليسوا مني ولست منهم ولم يردوا علي الحوض ولم يدخل عليهم ولم يصدقهم بحديثهم ولم يعنهم على ظلمهم فأولئك مني وأنا منهم وأولئك يردون علي الحوض. So in this hadith of Ka'b bin Ujra, he reported that the Prophet ﷺ said, there will be leaders after me, that whoever enters upon them and he believes them in their lying, and he helps them in their oppressing others, then he is not of me, and I am not of him. And he will not be brought to the hawd, which the hawd is the pond that the Prophet ﷺ has been promised that is reserved for him and his true followers in paradise. Okay? And there are hadiths about this hawd. Matter of fact, in Sahih Bukhari, I'll tell you, to interrupt this hadith, just to give you some background about this word hawd that's being used here. In Sahih Bukhari, there's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, he said, hawdi masiratu shahran. He said, my hawd, the distance across it is the distance of a month's traveling, a month's journey. Okay? And he said its cups, its drinking cups around it, he said, kanujum as-sama. They're like the stars in the sky, the drinking cups that will be waiting for my followers around that pond. And he said, ma'uhu atyabu min al-misk. And its water is more, the fragrance is more pleasant than musk perfume, a very sweet smelling perfume. And he said, it's وَلَوْنُهُ أَبْيَضُ مِنَ اللَّبَنِ. And its color is whiter than milk. And he said, "Man shariba minha fala yadma'u abada." And whoever drinks from it, he will never have thirst again after that. This is the hawd of the Prophet ﷺ, the pond, this lake, if you will, that is promised for the Prophet ﷺ in paradise, that his companions and his followers will be allowed to, those who followed him and were upon his way and remained upon his way until they died, until they met Allah, they will be allowed to drink from this pond as his followers. And in one of the narrations, some of people will be brought to drink from the pond, thinking they're from the Prophet's followers, and the angels will be pushing them away. And the Prophet ﷺ will tell the angels, they're my followers, ummati, ummati, they're my followers. And the angels will say to the Prophet ﷺ, innaka la tadri ma ahdathu ba'dak. Verily, you do not know what they innovated after you into the religion. It's also in Sahih Bukhari about this hawd. So it's another, I'm interjecting here a warning against innovating in Islam. Because those people who innovate, and the word they use, the word Prophet used, the Prophet used in the Hadith, he said, the angels will say, innaka la tadri ma ahdathu ba'dak, min ba'dak. You don't know what they innovate. The word he used, al-ihdath, this is the same word the Prophet used when he said, kullu muhdathatin bid'ah. This muhdatha, this is bid'ah. The same word he used. Every novelty, everything that's added into the religion is bid'ah. Meaning these people will be people who added innovations into the religion. And the angels will push them away from the pond of the Prophet. So they will not be allowed to drink, even though they thought they were from his followers. So this is one of the dangers of innovating in Islam, adding things into the religion. All right. So,
the river, but this is another.
Naam, yes, this is the hawd, yeah. But because also we know, inna a'tainaka al-kawthar. Verily we gave you the kawthar. This kawthar is and this is this is a hawd. So some of the scholars of the tafsir, if you look in the books of tafsir, they say there is a difference between the kawthar and the hawd. But they're both promised for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So then he went on to say, so the Prophet said, whoever goes to these leaders and believes them in their lying and helps them in their oppressing others, then he is not of me, وَأَنَا لَسْتُ مِنْهُ, and I am not of him. And he will not be allowed to come to my hawd. Also another reason a person will be prevented from drinking from the Prophet's pond. And he says, and whoever does not enter upon those evil lying leaders, and he does not believe them in their lying, and he does not help them in their oppressing others, and their dhulm, the word he used, oppressing of others, he said, then huwa minni wa ana minhu. Have we gone over for the break? Yeah. And so after this will be the last narration. We'll take break. Take your break. Ya Abu Wadah. Akharani kubik.
We have a projector we want to try.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Yeah, that made me late. I had to go back to the house and get it. That's okay. It's no problem. It's on me. I should have remembered. But okay, so this will be the last narration. We'll take a break after this, inshallah. So then he said, so whoever does not believe them in their lying, and he does not help them in their oppressing others, then he is of me, and I am of him. And he will be allowed to come to my hawd. This hadith is in the Sunan of An-Nasa'i, in the Sunan of At-Tirmidhi, and Shaykh Mustafaa, our author, Mustafaa Al Adawee, the compiler of this text, said that the hadith, it's changed. They said that it is sahih, it is authentic. So inshallah, we'll stop with that. We're going to get to more, for now, for our break. As we come back from the break, we're going to be discussing, of course, we have more hadiths that we're going to be discussing here. Hopefully we can get through all of the material, but we're going to get to some of the more major signs of the Day of Judgment.
Yeah, I was just wondering that, related to this, helping out the leaders, but at the same time, there's a hadith that says we cannot, go against the leaders.
Right, yeah, we don't make khuruj ala al-hukam, which means to rise. And another narration that he has here, he mentions it, that they asked the Prophet, what should we do? Because they told the Prophet, when the Prophet told them about this, they said, what should we do if we meet these people? The Prophet said, give them their rights and ask Allah for your rights. Okay? And they said, should we fight them? Should we fight against them? He said, no, as long as they establish the salah. And another narration, he said, no, as long as you don't see kufrun bawahin minhum, you don't see clear disbelief from them, then don't fight against them. And as long as they establish the prayer amongst you, then don't fight them. So there are a lot of narrations about this showing that it's not permissible for the Muslims to revolt against a Muslim ruler, even though they may see some bad things from him. Okay, they're not going to be perfect. You're going to see some bad things from the Prophet's telling us. You're going to see some bad things from some of the leaders who will come. But when the companions asked them what to do, and they even said, should we fight against them? He said, no, don't fight against them. As long as they establish the prayer, you don't see clear disbelief, kufr from them, then don't fight against them. And even the scholars have mentioned, like, for example, Sheikh bin Baz and Sheikh al-Uthaymeen, Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan, Shaykh Saleh Sadlan, they've given fatwa about this issue, about how to deal with oppressive rulers or wicked rulers amongst the Muslims. And they said, even if you see kufr from him, let's say the ruler is clearly, he makes statements that he claims to be a Muslim, but he makes rulings and statements that are clearly against Islam, like forbidding people to go to the masjid, or saying the women can't wear hijab. If whoever wears hijab in the society, we will lock them up. And this will be from a leader who's saying he's a Muslim, or things like this, and a lot of other things that that you may hear from some Muslim rulers and some. Even if they do stuff like this, the scholar said, if the Muslims don't have the conceivable ability to meet their what's the word they use, their power, their military might. In other words, don't try to fight against them if all you have is slingshots and rocks. Okay. All you're going to do is get Muslims, innocent Muslims killed, and you're going to make things hard for da'wah because they're going to just clamp down and make things worse on the people. So they say, even if you do see clear kufr from them, all right, and they clearly are professing things that are disbelief openly, and they're the rulers over in a Muslim land, and they're claiming to be Muslims, but they don't have anything to do with Islam, and they're against Islam. Every ruling they make is against Islam, but they're saying just on their tongue they're Muslims because they're from that society. Even still, the scholars say the Muslims are not allowed to rise up and fight against them unless you have the perceivable, you have the ability to meet their power with equal force. In other words, you have weapons, you have whatever, the tools of war and capabilities and technology and so forth to fight against them. But to rise up against them with slingshots and stones and like this, they said this is not that's not jihad. This is junoon. This is craziness. Because all you're going to do is you're going to get people killed like this. A situation that happened like this, and I know we're supposed to be taking a break, but just one situation from the history. Why the scholars are saying that? Why the scholars say that? This ruler we talked about, al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi, al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, this tyrannical ruler over the area of Iraq in his time. As we mentioned, he was very tyrannical, oppressive. He was like the butcher of Baghdad. This is how this guy was, okay?
That Khalifa from Syria could not change him? He was supporting the Khalifa from Syria. He wasn't against the Khilafah, was in Damascus, but he was in power because the Khalifa in Syria put him in power and made him over the people. Yes, he was a governor. He wasn't the Khalifa, but he was under the. And matter of fact, when the Khalifa wanted to wage war, when there was a fight between the Khalifa in Damascus against Zubair, Abdullah ibn Zubair in Medina, when Abdullah ibn Zubair, a Sahabi, was decided the people gave him bay'ah in Hijaz to become the leader. They sent when the Khalifa in Damascus wanted to stop that. He sent Hajjaj ibn Yusuf and his army from Baghdad to attack them. And that's who killed Abdullah ibn Zubair and hung his body up, on a stake and beheaded him, okay? And crucified, yeah, that's what hung his body up on a stake. This is crucifying, yeah, like this, okay? So this, so he was acting under the authority of the Khilafah in Damascus, okay? Even though he was the governor of Iraq, right? So, but my point I want to make about him is he was slaughtering people, okay? So there were some Muslims who came to a famous tabi'i. Tabi'i means one of the students of the Sahaba. His name was Al-Hasan al-Basri. Have you all heard of Al-Hasan al-Basri? Famous student of the Sahaba. Okay? These people, they came to Al-Hasan and they said, we want to go out. نريد أن نخرج على الحجاج. We want to go out and fight against Hajjaj, revolt against him with weapons. And so Al-Hasan said, I don't think that you should do it. He said, because if it is the test of Allah, if Hajjaj is the test of Allah for you, he said the answer for the test of Allah is sabr. Okay, it's sabr. Okay, and if it is a punishment from Allah from you, you cannot remove the punishment of Allah bisuyuf, with swords. You can't remove Allah's punishment with swords. Why don't you talk to Captain?
I don't mean to interrupt Brother Aqeel's class. I just want to give him salam.
Oh, why don't you talk to Captain?
I don't mean to
There's no problem. There's no problem. Alhamdulillah. We're about to take a break. Actually, I'm just finishing one little last narration.
Okay. No problem.
So he wanted to. So Hasan al-Basri said they went away from him, and they didn't listen to him. They considered him a foolish, and they went out to try to fight Hajjaj, and Hajjaj wiped them out, them and their families, destroyed their villages. He slaughtered them. Okay, and so Hasan said, by Allah, not one day did they bring about any good. Okay, why? Because they didn't have they did not have an army that was suitable to meet Hajjaj's army. So he's like, there's nothing you can do. Be patient. Answer Allah's test with patience. And if it's the punishment of Allah, your swords aren't going to be able to remove that, All right, be patient, They didn't want to listen. So this is the way of the scholars. You see, Al-Hasan was a scholar, you know. He's a scholar from the students of the Sahaba, and he's trying to tell them with hikmah, with wisdom, that this is not the way, you know, but they wouldn't listen, and this is what happens when people don't listen, you know, to the scholars. So inshallah, we'll stop with that, and we'll continue in the second half with the second half of the discussions of Ashraat, the signs of the hour. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Now.